What's up guys, this is Jeff from Sorta Healthy, and today we're back to talking about program design for personal trainers, or more specifically how a session should flow. Flow is kind of a weird word. A steady, continuous stream of something. Truth be told, if you're going to do well as a personal trainer though, your sessions do need to flow. And there are multiple ways in which you can achieve this. Good communication between yourself and your client is key in achieving this. And trainer and client communication is something that I have mentioned in previous videos, and I'm definitely going to mention it a whole bunch going forward in future videos. However, in this video today, I want to focus more on the technical aspect of flow within a personal training session. That's right, my friends, it's time to talk more program design. Before we do though, if you guys would be so kind as to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because both of those two things do very much help the channel to grow, and they allow me to keep making free content for you guys to help you guys do what you do and do it better than ever. Thank you for the support, everybody. It really does mean a lot. So in talking about program design, more specifically workout flow, let's first look at a few ways in which you might structure a client's workout. The first option is doing every exercise back to back. So after your client is done with their warm-up, their first exercise is squats. You'd have your client complete a set of squats. Then after that set of squats, you'd have your client take a break for a minute or two, and then you'd have your client complete that same set of squats again and again until all of their sets of squats are complete. You would then go on to do this with all their other exercises that you have programmed for the day until it's time to cool down. The second option is to use supersets within your personal training sessions. So if my first exercise after the warm-up is squats, I'm going to follow that set of squats up with a set of push-ups. And after that set of push-ups, I'm going to go back to the squats, and then I'm going to go back to the push-ups. And I will complete all of the sets of those two exercises before then moving on to my next two exercises and doing the same thing there. And this is how I will progress through the entire workout until I get to my cool down. Another option is trisets, and they're very similar to supersets, except now we're going to pair 3 different exercises together. And I'm showing you guys another visual example here, but basically if I had squats, push-ups, and rows, I would do my set of squats, then my set of push-ups, then my set of rows, and then I would go back through all 3. And then we have circuits, which would be anything beyond those 3 sets of exercises back to back. Actually, to be honest with you, there's really no firm definition on when a circuit truly begins, but in my opinion, within the context of a personal training session, anything beyond trisets does end up feeling a lot more like a traditional circuit. So yeah, any pairing of 4 or more exercises grouped together is pretty much a circuit within the context of a personal training session. Now looking at all these options back to back, supersets, trisets, or circuits, is there a best option to use within your personal training sessions? In situations like this, I would usually say it depends. And while obviously this is true and it does very much depend on what your client is looking to achieve, I feel like it's kind of a boring answer and a little bit of a cop-out. So while the best option for your client absolutely does depend on your client and their goals, I definitely do think that 1 or 2 of these options will be best for most personal training clients. So now let's break down each option and let me explain to you why I think 1 or 2 of these options are going to be best for the majority of your clients. Doing exercises back to back definitely makes things feel like they're moving a little bit slower. It can also make each exercise feel a little bit more challenging. I find that my clients who want to work on strength do pretty well with this style of training. I also find that most of my general population clients who are not interested in strength don't really enjoy this style of training. Well, maybe I should say they don't enjoy it relative to some of my other upcoming options. One benefit to this way of training is that it's very easy to fatigue specific muscle groups with your client, and of course, this makes it easy to help that client achieve progressive overload. Progressive overload being the only thing that actually does lead to muscle gain. The second option is again the superset option, or grouping 2 exercises together and then going back through those 2 exercises again before moving on to any additional exercises. Now when you structure your workout this way, for the general population, the flow of the workout instantly improves. It does feel like you're moving through your workout faster, and to some extent, this is a legitimate thing. Typically, you can move through your exercises a little bit faster when you're using supersets instead of doing everything back to back. Some of this, though, is an illusion. Doing these different exercises back to back will make your client feel like they're getting more done than they actually are. And this is important for about 1 million different reasons, but if I had to sum it up in a single statement, I would say that your client is paying you to help them get as much quality exercise done as they can in an allotted amount of time. The more quality work you get done, the better. And supersets do still lead to a good amount of muscle fatigue and progressive overload. Trisets are very similar to supersets, except now we're pairing exercises in groups of 3. Your workout will likely flow better than if you just did every exercise back to back, and partially this will be because you can actually move at a slightly faster pace. But again, just like with supersets, there is that illusion that you're getting more done than you actually are. In fact, with trisets, this is probably even more true than it would be for supersets. And you can still achieve muscle fatigue and progressive overload this way. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's still not that hard to have the average client achieve both of these things. However, oftentimes after you get back to the initial exercise, after completing the following 2 exercises, those muscle groups that you used in that initial exercise, well, they might be 100% recovered by that point. I'm gonna show you guys an example here. We have squats, push-ups, and rows. I have my client do 12 squats. They become challenging towards the end, just like they should. 15 push-ups, same thing, they get hard by the end. And then we do 15 rows per side. And same thing, they get tough right at the end. By the time we get back to squats, they have fully recovered in that specific area. Their legs and glutes are pretty much back to 100% because they had those other 2 exercises in between. Now you can make the argument, okay, cool, they're back to 100%. I can actually push them a little bit harder this set than I would be able to if I were doing this exercise back to back. And maybe that's true, and maybe if you had an unlimited amount of time within a personal training session, you could have clients achieve muscular fatigue this way. But truth be told, you're likely only going to have 2 to 3 sets of every exercise. And if you break up your trisets this way, even if you are able to push them a little bit harder in that second round of squats, that extra effort still might not be enough to offset that extra break that they got between those 2 sets of squats. So I think it's fair to say that if you do your trisets like my first example, it could certainly lead to less muscular fatigue over time. And if we have less muscular fatigue, it's very likely going to lead to less progressive overload and less muscle gain. Again, I'm not saying this is always true, but within the confines of the average personal training session, in my experience, this is typically true. And this is pretty much how I always used to do all of my personal training sessions. Now I do my trisets more like this. I'll have my client do squats, lunges, and bridges. And then basically I'll go back through all 3 of those exercises again. And of course I'm making these exercises challenging. I want to fatigue them, I don't want to kill them. But yeah, it needs to be hard and I want them to build muscle mass. If I pair my trisets like this, my client will definitely experience muscle fatigue and progressive overload. And again, if I go back to my previous example of the squat, the push-up, and the row, I'm sure they will still achieve some level of muscle fatigue. However, in my experience, in a traditional personal training session, they will experience less muscle fatigue this way. Now, progressive overload and specific muscle fatigue becomes even a little bit harder to achieve in a circuit. And I'm going to show you guys one last example as to why this is true. Let's say my 4 exercises are squats, push-ups, rows, and chops. After taking my client through all 4 of these exercises, then returning back to squats, my client's legs have fully recovered. And again, I'm probably only going to be able to do 2 to 3 sets of each exercise. I likely will not achieve muscular fatigue in any of these exercises by the time we get through all of it. Now, I could get fancy and I could pair my exercises something like this. I could pair a bench press, flies, rows, and reverse flies all together. And this would probably still work and help my client achieve that muscular fatigue, but I think it's a little unnecessarily complicated. Most likely in that scenario, I'd be better off just doing 2 supersets. I could either pair the bench press with the flies and the rows with the reverse flies. I could pair the bench press with the rows and the flies with the reverse flies. Either combination would work out just fine. Circuits can be really useful in larger group settings where we want to keep everything moving at a very fast pace and we're working with lighter weights. I think it's fair to say though that in a one-on-one training session or a very small group training session that they are probably less effective at fatiguing specific muscle groups and helping your clients achieve progressive overload, which again, progressive overload leads to muscle gain and we want muscle gain, duh. Again, there are absolutely ways around this and you can make a circuit work perfectly well for just about any client, but I don't feel like you should have to make any workout flow work for any client, because most likely there is going to be a workout flow that already works really well for them right off the bat. So now we're going to look at a chart discussing the pros and cons for each workout flow that we talked about today. So the biggest advantage of back-to-back exercises is there's a good amount of muscle fatigue and progressive overload. And the biggest con would be that it's kind of slower moving and seen as a little bit more boring by the general population. For supersets, there's still a good amount of muscle fatigue and progressive overload, and you can definitely move at a faster pace. I would say it's still not quite as fast-paced as some of the other options. In trisets, progressive overload and muscle fatigue are still very possible, and you can move at a considerably faster pace. It's a little bit tougher to hit muscular fatigue or progressive overload in any specific muscle group though. Next up, we have circuits, and if you're doing a circuit, you can move at a fast pace, and your workouts will have more of a cardio feel. Some clients really do like that. The downside here is that unless you very specifically plan, you're going to get less progressive overload, or just muscle building in general. So what's the best option for most personal training sessions? In most personal training sessions, these are likely going to be your two best options. That's right, we got our sweet spot right here. If you have a client that's primarily seeing you to lose weight, but they also do want to get stronger, supersets within your workout can be a great option. If you have a client who's almost entirely just interested in losing weight, strength is something they want to work on, but it's not something they're super interested in, this triset might be a really good option for that client. Back-to-back and circuits definitely have their uses as well, and I will certainly use them with certain clients, but I'd say for about 3/4 of my clients, these are the two options that I use, and I would recommend that you try these out with your clients as well. And there we have it. Now we've broken down how your workout should flow depending on what kind of client that you're working with. And just like a recent video that I did talking about workout routine splits, again within the confines of a personal training session, I do want to make it clear that you can use any of these different styles pretty much with any different client, really. However, some clients are likely to do better doing their exercises back to back, some are likely to do better using supersets or trisets, and some are going to do better doing circuits. As the professional, it's up to you to figure out which of these options is best for your client. Do your personal training sessions flow like mine do? I mean, maybe they flow better than mine do. Who's to say? Let me know in the comments down below though. What do you think? Are back-to-back exercises best? Do you like supersets, trisets, or circuits? Or heck, maybe you have an entirely different way of doing it. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments what you think is working best for you. As always, if you haven't liked the video and subscribed to the channel, please do because it does help the channel to grow. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And we'll be back soon with more useful content for trainers like yourself, and I hope to see you in the next video.